in this scenario, we're totally fine with the people that will have the most access and the most power to influence our sense of safety and community not going through background checks. Ooh, the hoops they jump through. Hi, welcome to Street Politics. My name is Reese Waters. Shout out to all of our new subscribers and members here on the channel. Now that we have officially entered find out season.
Trump's talking about if we tax them, hit tariffs, the same item they're making over there will cost the same to make over here.
We pay the tariffs.
Well, the companies pay the tariffs, not us.
China doesn't pay the tariffs. We do when they come in.
No, it doesn't work like that.
Nowhere are the immediate ramifications of a second Trump administration being seen and felt more immediately than in Texas.
So if we don't want to help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way.
So you know Jasmine was going to have something to say.
Mexico's president was very firm. She called out President-elect Donald Trump, saying that both Mexico and the United States collaborate on a lot of different levels, including economically. And in other words, she said that she's ready to respond in kind. Let me read to you a portion of that letter that she sent to President-elect Donald Trump. She said, quote, "President Trump, neither threats nor tariffs will solve the issue of migration or drug consumption in the United States. Cooperation and shared understandings are required to face these important challenges. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response." I'm going to read that one more time because these are very important words from Mexico's president. Imposing one tariff would mean another comes in response, continuing like this until we put shared companies at risk. Now, the tone of this letter is very important because Mexico's president is not just talking about tariffs, about economic and the economic relationship with the United States, but also the border relationship with the United States, because Mexico has done a lot to help the Biden administration control the migration that is coming into the U.S. southern border.
Now, a couple things. One, what Mexico's president is asserting is not unknown to anybody that was actually paying attention to this before the election, but I do find it fascinating. This was your strong man, right? This is your strong man right now getting pressed by Mexico's president. That's what's going on right now.
This is the very definition of totalitarianism.
Also to keep in mind, let me find out that they were claiming machismo and sexism was one of the reasons why they avoided Kamala Harris, but that's Mexico's president.
Which begs the question about what is happening on the U.S. southern border, given that Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming U.S. border czar, Tom Homan, are on the border today. Here's the reality. The migrant apprehension numbers are extremely low. I talked to a law enforcement source, Jim, who says that on Sunday, migrant apprehensions were about 1,500. If you compare that to December of 2023, when 10,000 people were crossing the border per day, that just gives you a sense of the dramatic change. The reality is, and I've talked to both people on the ground, agents, and also advocates who work on the border, they say it is very low, despite what you're hearing from Governor Greg Abbott and the incoming border czar, Tom Homan.
Now, I want to put up a flag right now. I put out a video some months ago talking about Rudy Giuliani and how, like me and many others that had experience with Rudy Giuliani when he was in office in New York, understand just how in character his late life fall has been with the person who we knew him to be. One of the core tenets of the ways that they were able to terrorize Black and brown communities all over New York City is the demand that arrest numbers continue to increase, because as arrest numbers continue to increase, that signaled that the police were doing their job, and it also enabled them to ask for more money. The reality is that when you arrest a whole bunch of people, there's less other people to arrests. So arrests should actually go down as crime goes down, which in fact it was. But they felt like arrests going down wasn't the right way for them to legitimize their own positions and legitimize all of the budget money that they were asking for, legitimize all the overtime, you name it. So they would just keep finding new people to arrest in order to juice up their numbers. I have a whole video all about that. I just want to put a flag up right now about what we have seen in the past with these kinds of agencies and the things that they're willing to do in order to legitimize their existence.
All right, Rosa Flores, important context. Thank you very much. Tom Homan was also on Fox News last night threatening to put the mayor of Denver, Mike Johnston, in jail if he doesn't go along with the administration's plans for mass deportations. Take a listen.
We agree on one thing. He's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail. Because there's a statute, it's Title 8 United States Code 1324 III, and what it says is, it's a felony if you knowingly harbor and conceal an illegal alien from immigration authorities. It's also a felony to impede a federal law enforcement officer. So if we don't want to help, that's fine. He can get the hell out of the way. Now,
This was so perfect because of Greg Abbott cheesing right next to him. So let me ask you a question, MAGA, and I know consistency is not your strength, but let me ask you a question. So when Greg Abbott defied the president and decided he was going to keep officials from being able to access the border,
Texas will use its own strategies to secure the border.
that was okay because that was a state using their autonomy. But now where you have the mayor of Denver who said he's willing to violate the desires of Tom Homan, who's not even in office yet. But when he states that he's willing to violate the desires of the incoming administration, that's okay, right?
What we're not going to do is support deploying the 101st Airborne into American cities to pull 10-year-old kids out of their classrooms in handcuffs. I think that is immoral, that's unconstitutional, and that's un-American.
Because it was okay when Greg Abbott did it, right? So it was okay when Greg Abbott did it, so then it has to be okay when the Denver mayor did it. It's the fact that they don't even make the slightest attempt to hide the hypocrisy. Greg Abbott is cheesing right next to him, having done the thing that Tom Homan is saying he will arrest the Denver mayor over.
he's willing to go to jail. I'm willing to put him in jail.
I ain't seen nothing this sad since they gave the Cowboys and Giants a prime spot on Thanksgiving.
They want to play well. They got to tighten up today.
Get the run again. Nice little hole there for Singletary, but it closes up quick. But he pushes it forward, and he's got a first down.
No offense, Jasmine. I know you from Texas.
The Trump team hasn't even entered office yet, and you have a high-level incoming official like Tom Homan threatening to put the mayor of one of America's biggest cities in for mass deportations. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, so I have a couple of reactions. Number one, they just made up this position, okay? Like, they created this position. This isn't something that, say, the Senate has to consent to. This is a random kind of henchman of Donald Trump's, number one.
I like her use of the word henchman. Let's go ahead and get a definition. And now let's use it in a sentence.
Pete Hegseth was forced to step down from a veterans nonprofit after being accused of alcohol abuse, sexual misconduct, and mismanaging the group's money.
Allegations of paying for sex with the text messages to back it up. We have new details now tied to that Congressional House ethics investigation into Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz.
A lawsuit raising questions about child safety under Linda McMahon.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has reportedly been bragging about being sent some nude photographs from prominent journalist Olivia Nuzzi.
Nuzzi allegedly sent demure nudes of herself to RFK Jr. during their sexting affair.
Elon Musk is running a, quote, animal house. The SpaceX founder and his company being sued by 8 former employees who allege that they were illegally fired for raising concerns about gender discrimination and about sexual harassment.
Facing fresh scrutiny, Tulsi Gabbard, the former Democratic congresswoman turned loyal Trump supporter, pressed on her views of the fallen regime of Syria's Bashar al-Assad. Gabbard made an unsanctioned trip to Syria in 2017 to meet with Assad and has argued the brutal dictator was not an enemy of the U.S.
Number two, the job of that particular role is not to incarcerate people. If this man wants to be the one that is going to enforce our laws, then maybe we should look for him to be the Attorney General of the United States, because seemingly it doesn't matter whether or not you're qualified to fulfill that position for Trump. It's just about whether or not you will arrest the people that he wants arrested.
What? You don't think Matt Gaetz was qualified to be Attorney General? Cause he killing it on Cameo.
Hey Tara, it's Matt Gaetz. Your friend Jordan wanted to send congratulations for making partner at your law firm, and you're going to make so much money. And then when you make all that money, you're not going to want to pay it all in taxes. You're going to want to go to hiring more people, building the American dream, and success. It's the most unifying force in a nation, in our politics, and I wish you all the success in the world.
And this was one of those things that we tried to warn people about with Project 2025, which is this idea of we will go out and we will incarcerate people. This is the type of thing that they claim was happening to Trump and his friends, instead of people accepting the reality that Trump and his acolytes are actual criminals. You know, right now we have people that are deciding that they are going to criminalize those that are not doing what Trump wants them to do.
Oh, hypocrisy must be the word of the day, because now criminals are the people that you're after, right? That is the thing that you're demonizing are the criminals, but we ignore the criminality that we've seen pervade the entire MAGA movement. So we just get to decide whether or not we respect or don't respect criminality and criminals. Get it? It's kind of like all the things I said I would never do before I had kids. Yet here I am now, singing Moana at the top of my lungs with a grass skirt on.
And I do want to ask you about Tom Homan, because his role seems to be an unofficial part of Homeland Security. He focuses on the border while Kristi Noem she's been the pick for Department of Homeland Security Secretary. Yeah. Apparently she's going to focus on everything else.
Dogs. She focused on dogs. Yeah, she focused on dogs.
On the way back from that hunting trip, she writes that she stopped by to see some friends. The dog jumped out of the truck and started attacking her friends' chickens, killing several of them, even whipping around to try to bite Noem. Noem says she then took the dog out to a gravel pit, George, and shot the dog.
And the occasional goat. That's what she's gonna be focused on.
She has to be confirmed by the Senate. He does not.
Correct.
What do you make of all that?
Well, I just want to say, hopefully she has nothing to do with our pets and our animals, since, you know, we remember what Kristi did.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we sure do. But you know who doesn't remember what Kristi did? Kim Jong-un.
In the first release of your book, you wrote, "I remember when I met with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. There was no evidence that that meeting happened. So how did it make it into your book, Governor?"
I'm not going to talk about that.
Just to put it to bed once and for all, did you or did you not meet with Kim Jong-un?
I am not going to talk about this.
Wouldn't it be why is that such a difficult one to say publicly?
Because I've taken that line out of the book and I'm not going to discuss it.
Okay, but I guess the question is because you wrote it in the book, people just wanted to know whether that was an accurate or an inaccurate statement.
I do think that if they are trying to implore him with the type of power that he believes that he's going to have, then he should absolutely be confirmed by the Senate. And in addition to that, you know, we've been having lots of conversations about the fact that the Trump administration does not want these people that are going to go before the Senate to actually go through background checks, right? And so I think that that's another really important part of this, especially when we start talking about someone who now is trying to incarcerate people. This is outside of the purview of whatever this made-up position is, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, he should have to go through the same level of scrutiny if he is going to get this type of power.
Now, how would we react in a normal, everyday scenario where somebody is reluctant to go through a background check? Say you're applying for a job and they ask you for a background check and you get a little bit froggy. That's going to be a red flag, would it not? Would it not? You always get a little bit more suspicious when he always hides his phone, right? Right? Yeah. When the laptop is always locked, you're always a little bit side-eye at what exactly she got going on. Yet somehow, in this scenario, we're totally fine with the people that will have the most access and the most power to influence our sense of safety and community not going through background checks. Ooh, the hoops they jumped through. Now I see why they were shading Simone Biles. Because they do that type of mental gymnastics just on the regular. Like that's just, it makes sense that they wouldn't appreciate Simone Biles the way we appreciate Simone Biles, because they are gold medal winning mental gymnasts.
And you have said that this is going to be devastating for your district if these mass deportations move forward. You've pushed for bipartisan reform. I mean, what is going to be the impact in your district if this goes through? And can Democratic officials in cities and different municipalities, I mean, if you have Tom Homan threatening to put a mayor in jail, what really can you do to say we're not going to go along with these mass deportations?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can't lock everybody up. That's number one. Number two, when we look at the economics of it, like this team is not really doing the smart things around economics. They're doing the smart things that may help out some of their cronies, right? Because if you're going to do the mass deportations, then that means that you have to have more deportation facilities to house them in. So I'm sure that there's somebody who probably participated in mass incarceration and benefited from that. Somebody is going to benefit because now it's like, oh, well, we're going to need housing for them. So yes, one of Trump's friends, one of those people that most likely funded his campaign will say, well, we will build this for you so that you can house them.
It's funny you should just mention that, because I believe Texas just allotted hundreds of acres just for that. That looks like it's worth following. And certainly anybody that had a hand in mass incarceration, especially private prisons, would have the moral makeup in order to fully participate in mass deportation detention.
But when we look at the rest of us and our economy, when we look at things, I serve on the agriculture committee, when we look at who is actually going out and farming our land, it's not that we are raising our kids to do that here in the United States. These are the realities. We tell everybody you've got to go off to college. We don't tell them we need you to go and work on the farm and make sure that we can keep the cost of food down. And so we've got to stop demonizing these people that are actually contributing to our economy.
Well, we're going to find out. Yeah, we going to find out, because they make excuses for a whole lot of things. I want to see them make excuses for rising costs if in fact they go through with the deportation and the tariffs. I want to see them make excuses for rising costs when they claim that everything that was said and done on the campaign trail was excusable because the economy. Oh, we gonna see.
We also have to pay attention to what's happened in places such as Japan. When Japan decided to close off its borders and what happened to it economically, I challenge people to go and Google what happened to Japan when they did that and how they had to reform.
I'll do you a solid. Here's what happened.
Well, I think Japan is in a lot of trouble, perhaps more trouble than anybody. You know, they have borrowed an incredible amount of money. They've got, bad debts all throughout their banking system. And the bad news for Japan is that they actually went to negative interest rates. And negative interest rates, whatever you think of the Fed and all the bad decisions they've made, at least give them credit for not going to negative interest rates, because negative interest rates are a trap from which you can never leave.
Trump's threats of tariffs. We just heard Rosa Flores talk about this a few moments ago. Obviously, a very stiff response coming from the president of Mexico. But in this hour and in the previous hour, we've talked about the economic impact that you might see from these tariffs. We had a fuel expert earlier on in the program saying you could have higher gas prices if these tariffs on Canada go through.
I mean, is this what the price of gas is worth?
Not the gas. Not the gas. Anything but the gas.
We had $1.89 gas under Donald Trump. It cost me $130 to fill up my SUV 2 days ago. People can't afford life anymore.
Next thing you gonna tell me, when Byron Donalds going CVS, he's still gonna have to ask the attendant to open up the display so he can get his Beijing.
If Rosa Flores was saying in the previous hour, if you have tariffs on Mexico and those goods coming in from Mexico, you could see the price of avocados, for example, go up. A lot of agricultural products come in from Mexico. Your thoughts on what the economic impact might be? And I guess the other question is, if there are so many folks out there worried about high prices at the grocery store and so on, what might these tariffs do in the long run?
I think this is a conversation that we needed to have more in-depthly prior to the election, to be perfectly honest, because I feel like a lot of people are now understanding how tariffs work, but I feel like we must not have fleshed this out really well to make sure that people understand that, number one, like your laptop that is sitting here, guess what? It's not all made in one specific country. The screen may come from one country. The chips may come from another country. The keys may come from another country. And as I've traveled the world and talked to different American chambers around the world, we've talked about what it would take to try to get some of our businesses maybe to help out in some of our friendlier countries. And we've had to talk to the heads of states and the directors of finance and talk to them about their tariffs. Because here's the deal. If you start to say, well, you know what, those keys that don't get made in the United States, they're going to cost more. Well, guess what? The laptop is going up.
Right.
So this is what we're going to see across the board. But as you
Democrats
saw,
try to warn voters about this before the election.
We did.
Kamala Harris called it a tax on the middle class so on.
It is.
But it didn't work out for her in the end.
It didn't resonate, and I think it is because tariffs isn't something that we talk about every single day. And so it's like, well, wait a minute. You know, if you don't understand why your food is more expensive, then you may not necessarily be inclined to be listening to us have a conversation about tariffs. But this is the bread and butter, literally, of what is going to raise prices. And as we've just talked about, or you talked about, listen, we've got record high travel. Right now, we know that, it may not feel the greatest right now when we want prices to be lower, but we at least have the money to travel right now. We at least have the money to make sure that we're going to have Thanksgiving. And I can't say the same is going to happen next year if he goes through with these tariffs.
Now, a couple things here, and this is where I have to bring in the Democrats, because Jim was correct that Kamala Harris and the Democrats did echo often exactly what the ramifications of these tariffs would be. I don't know how many videos I saw online of MAGAs fundamentally not understanding how tariffs work, while at the same time advocating for Donald Trump because ... the economy.
Tariffs are going to make things more expensive. Let me learn you something real quick. When they put tariffs on imported goods, that gives an incentive to domestic companies to produce those goods. Increased domestic production would bring down prices. So when domestic producers are competing for customers, that could also drive them to lower the prices even more.
But here's the thing. The same lack of fundamental understanding of how tariffs work would really track with a fundamental lack of understanding of how inflation works. With a pandemic, it would track with a fundamental misunderstanding of the context of our recovery from the pandemic. It would really track with people's fundamental misunderstanding of the stimulus and how that was handed out. It would really track with people not understanding the economy that Donald Trump inherited and the one that Biden inherited. It would really track all of these things. Really echo a electorate that has a basic misunderstanding of the core tenets of many of the things that they claim to care about. And that is everybody's problem, which includes you, Democrats. They've been able to weaponize it using misinformation and, dare I say, lies. They know how ignorant America is at this moment in time. They know exactly how ignorant America is at this moment in time, and they've used it to their advantage. Now, Democrats, what are you going to do about it? Because continuing to try and reach them and your traditional methods has been ineffective, which is the reason why you're seeing so many people running around now claiming they didn't understand and what does this mean for me, et cetera, et cetera. That's the whole reason why we're in find out season right now is because of your inability to communicate these things earlier. So what are you going to do about it? And also, my offer still stands for bringing the messaging down. My offer still stands. I can run things by my daughter's preschool 3 class, and I can tell you what they like. I'm available.